Welcome back to another edition of the a la carte sports betting channel. My name is Matthew Winkler. This is the sister channel to the Parlay Kitchen. It is hosted by me and my buddy JR. So today we're going to be talking about the UFC fights happening this weekend. UFC 297. Headlining is Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis. Have some good fights to talk over. We're going to break down every one as I watched film on all of them to prepare and see who has the best value. Once again, this is a value betting sports channel, so we look for the best value and what we can find to make ourselves profitable in the long run of things. So we're going to start with our first fight of the night, Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. So let me grab my notes right here, boys and girls. Doubtful, but don't want to leave anyone out. So, first fight's Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. And first thing to start out with is Jimmy Flick took a 2-year layoff at one point, and that was about a year and a half ago, 2 years. And ever since then, he has not won a fight. And I wasn't impressed looking over his film either. So I wanted to start there because ever since he took that layoff, he really hasn't even been competitive in the martial arts world. So that was a red flag to me already looking into it. And then Malcolm Gordon isn't the most durable fighter by any means, but what I appreciate of his last fight is he was fighting against what is it? Islam Makhachev. No, not Makhachev. Uh, yeah, Islam Makhachev, I believe is how you say it. But he's this up-and-comer fighter from England, I think is the flag he represents. But he held his own up until the third round, where he almost actually submitted this undefeated fighter, huge prospect. But then he got submitted himself. But he took out the guy's knee. I'm pretty sure Islam had to take a long break because his knee was actually truly injured from the submissions that Malcolm Gordon put on him. So with that in mind, I have to lean Malcolm Gordon for showing that heart and ability to stay in the fight even if things go south. And Jimmy Flick just hasn't looked as dangerous as I think anyone in the UFC should be. So the first fight of the night, I lean Malcolm Gordon. I have him by decision, but this would be one I would stay away from in the betting market just because they're both pretty trash. So unless you are just a degenerate and want to place a bet, I would choose Malcolm Gordon being the slight favorite as of now, but not that interested in that fight. Next fight's going to be a women's fight. It's going to be Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Priscilla Cochiera. And so in that fight, I'm going to choose Jasmine right off the rip just because seeing her beat Miranda Maverick was pretty impressive. I feel seeing that Miranda has been a good up-and-comer. So I think she has a lot of paths to victory, especially with her wrestling game, being a Canadian Olympic athlete. I think has a wrestling Canadian Olympic athlete, I think has a huge advantage in this type of fight because Priscilla is a power boxer puncher woman coming out of Brazil, and she does have power. I'll give her that for this weight class and division. But when it comes to just the fight idea of how I think it's gonna go out, I think Jasmine's gonna take her down. And Priscilla just got submitted by this young up-and-comer who's 22 years old with little experience. Pretty dang good, but the red flag to me was that it was someone that is a prospect that did that to her. Now we have Jasmine, who's a proven wrestler and good grappler, to where I think she'll get the job done. And that's actually one of the first parlay pieces I'm giving out this week. I think Jasmine's a very good one to add in. I think she'll be safe. And even if she doesn't get the submission, I think her just having the control time will win her the fight. So Jasmine Davicius by either submission or decision would be the bet there. And then going to the next fight, we have Johan Lioness versus Sam Patterson. This fight, I think it's really low level when it comes to skill levels. Like we have Johan, who throws bombs, and they're very sloppy when I watch the film. Like there's no precision. It's just if he gets you in his straight line path, and if he clips you, he might win. That's about, I think, his strategy. He's just hoping that you line up perfectly with his random ass punches. And then we got Sam Patterson when I watched his film, because they were talking about him being a good up and comer. I just was not impressed and didn't even consider him a new, like, high potential up and comer. He looks very sloppy, and I just don't see how he's really made it to the UFC. Honestly, I think he still should be on the division, regional scene, getting more like fights to build him for this potential of the UFC. But with that in mind, Johan will gas after the first round, based on what I saw, because he's just throwing huge Hail Mary punches. And so the thought process for this fight is Johan to win in the first or second round. And then if he doesn't do that, I will actually give Sam Patterson a chance to win at that point, as I think he will be the taller fighter, lengthier fighter, and be able to at least get a lot of points that way. So this would be another fight I stay away from, unless you're wanting to like choose Johan by a KO or the first or second round to get some value there. Those lines haven't dropped yet, but when they do, I might sprinkle something on it, just because Johan does throw bombs, and I can appreciate that for the third fight of the night if he can get a knockout, just to start the vibes off for the rest of the card here. So that's the end of that. And then we're going to go to the prelims. Those were the early prelim fights. Now we're at the prelims. First one on that card is going to be Jillian Robinson versus Polyana Vienna. This fight's kind of similar to that Jasmine DeVicious fight. I think Jillian Robinson has a clear path to victory when she gets to the ground. She is very well-rounded and dominant in that area of the sport. And then Polyana is a very strategic boxer. When I watched hers for like the woman weight class that they're in, I thought she was pretty technical, stays pretty safe, doesn't have like huge power, but the volume could definitely be an issue. She, does catch you right. But once again, I have Jillian Robertson in my forecast to take her down and control her, and then probably get the submission, because she's just so well-rounded down there. And even if it stayed on the feet, like Jillian isn't like complete trash when it comes to stand-up. Definitely not as good as Polyana, based on at least film, right? But I think, it's just going to go to the mat, and that will be a wrap. So that's actually another piece of this parlay that I created this week, is Jillian Robertson, just to do the money line. It's kind of getting pricey, but I do think it's a safe bet. So Jillian Robertson by submission or decision. That would be the end of that recap for that fight, or summary for that fight, better off. And then next fight, we're going to a rematch fight against Serhi City. I don't know how to say his name, honestly, guys. And then Ramon Tavares. And the thing I am expecting on this fight is a car crash, based on the first fight that was called a early stoppage. Sidney won, but the ref definitely jumped in before the fight should have been called. Ramon Tavares was still defending himself and clearly still conscious. So going to the forecast of this fight, what I am projecting is flip a coin, choose a side, and hope for the best, because these guys both are throwing power. Like, they are not worried about getting knocked out. They just want to knock the other person out, is what it looked like. And so with this being a rematch of a fight that was stopped too early. Like, I really didn't take much value in saying that Sydney, for winning the first fight on paper, is the better fighter. Like, he definitely was catching Ramon more, but when Ramon did catch Shiri, he hurt him too. So I would just flip a coin and really going off of value, right? As I say, chase the value. Ramon Tavares is the underdog right now at plus 155, which is good value. So if I had to choose, if I had to throw my coin in the air and just choose a side, I'm going to choose Ramon by knockout. Because, yeah, both these guys are just throwing Hail Mary bombs. And I think someone's getting caught there. And then the other best bet would be the under. Whatever the round line is. I think it's at 1.5 just because they're so quick to get to the action. There is no feeling out process until their fist feels their other person's face. So Ramon would be the pick, but that fight could go either way. Next fight's going to be Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. And after watching film on this fight, I thought Charles Jourdain is definitely going to be the better fighter in all areas that the fight could go. Stand up, I think he's going to have the power, more technical. When it gets to the ground, I think he will have dominant positions down there. I will give Sean Woodson, being so lengthy, a good defensive capability for himself, but I don't think that's how you want to win fights, is being on the defense. So in this fight, I think Charles Jourdain is another key piece to parlay. Just because Sean will overextend his punches from what I saw and leave himself very vulnerable to any counters. And so I'm actually predicting that Charles is going to catch one of those counters and knock out Sean Woodson. And then when I thought about how good Sean Woodson is with his defense on the ground, if I'm Charles and I watch this film, I'm probably not even going to want to go there. Just because I think it's going to waste too much time and energy that you could just be spending during the stand-up. And Sean Woodson didn't seem to have knockout power. He has precision is what it looked like, being so tall and lengthy, but if he doesn't get that precision, I think there's just a lot of power coming his way from Charles. So Charles Jourdain by knockout in the second round is what I'll say. And yeah, that would be some decent value. His price tag's getting up there too. But another piece to the parlay that I have built this week. So that would be that fight. Next fight, the last fight on the prelims, is going to be Brad Katana versus Garrett Armfield. And in this fight, I think Brad Katana won the, what is it called? The UFC's development thing. I forget what it's called right now, unfortunately. Think of it here in a second. But Garrett Armfield is a lot more powerful, I feel, than Brad Katana, even though Brad won the whole event. And his last fight was a very good fight. I enjoyed his last fight. I just don't see him being as threatening in this fight. He might win on a decision if it gets to that point, because he's so durable and he plays a very good point game from what it looked like. But this Garrett Armfield guy is another one that's just out there throwing bombs. And so if he catches Brad, I think his durability could be put to the test, because he's going to be the smaller fighter in this match. And Garrett, I do think, does have that knockout potential in this weight class, to at least give Brad a test for what his durability might be. So I'm going to choose Garrett Armfield by third round knockout, just because I will give Brad the benefit of the doubt that he won't get those first 2 rounds knocked out, just because he looked so durable. But I think after 10 minutes of getting beat up, if Garrett catches him in those second round, that it will catch up with him and he'll quit. Doesn't seem like it, but you can only take so much. And so Garrett's actually going to be the underdog pick for that fight, and he's at a very good price tag at plus 175. So he's one I would consider the closer the fight gets. I think he might even be plus 200. and that I think would just be super good value to pre-flop bet this fight. So that's my breakdown of that. And then we make it to the main event where we're going to have Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. And both these fighters are truly, like, now we're getting to some, like, true greats of their craft here. Both are great. Anything I could really break down of fighting. So then I just have to predict, kind of how I see this fight breaking down and who has the slightest of edges. So I think they're both going to respect each other's power and not really engage into like a car crash type fight. I think there's going to be a lot of the feeling out process. We're probably going to be booing at this first fight is how I see that going. And then I think we're going to just be booing also when I think this is what's going to happen is Movsar is going to shoot. He is going to trip Arnold Allen. And once you get Movsar on top of you, he's a wet blanket that is just so heavy. And you can't get off because whichever way you push it, it's still grabbing you, right? So I think that's how that fight's going to go. And Movsar, respecting that power, isn't going to want to play the stand-up game with Arnold Allen. And once he gets him down, like Arnold should still be defensively sound down there. But just a matter of time will win Movsar the fight, and that's how I see that going. I'm not going to want to say that Arnold Allen's going to get submitted by him. It's possible if he's on the ground for so long, but I just don't see that. And Movsar's 17-0. Arnold Allen's only 19-2, but he faced Max Holloway already, so he's definitely facing some top caliber guys. So I'm not counting him out. Like if I were wrong on that, not surprised at all. But just how I see the fight going, Movsar by decision would be the perfect breakdown, I think, for myself. So going to the next fight, it's going to be Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. This fight, I think, could be a car crash or it could be not interesting at all. Like Chris Curtis, he's very low volume from what I see, and I think he has the capability of a knockout punch, but I just don't see it often enough to like preach that to everyone. And then Marc-Andre, a very good boxer as well, will shoot some takedowns, but Chris Curtis has like an 80% takedown defense, so I think that's just going to neutralize it and make this a boxing match. And so with that in mind, who do I think will win when it becomes a boxing match? So this is where you got to think like UFC and biasness and what makes the company the most money. I don't think Chris Curtis, they're trying to make some, superstar. Neither do I with Mark. But what I do see here is that Mark has a Canadian flag and this will be held in Canada. And so if it's a pretty even match, if they go to decision, no one's had a drastic moment in the fight, I think Mark's going to get his hand raised for the crowd's sake. It's going to be right before the next fight, who also has a Canadian on it. So I think they're going to want to get, give the Canadians what they want to see. And so Mark would have to be the pick on that one. And he's at plus 160. But this fight's so, narrowly edged, how I see it, narrowly edged out, that I'm not going to put money on it. Because yeah, if the judges decide to not be biased, then it could definitely go to Chris Curtis, which wouldn't be surprising either. But for the value sake of this, podcast, Marc-Andre is going to be the pick. Next fight is going to be Neil Magny versus Mike Mallet. And this one goes also to, what does the UFC want to see for their business model and what makes them the most money long term. And so Neil Magny, I think, great gatekeeper for the top people in the UFC. Will decide, he'll protect who's actually going to make it into the top 15, top 20. But Mike Mallett's on the rise. He's not super young by any means, so I don't think he's going to have a run for the title or anything like that. But he's, pretty good looking. He's got good skills, very marketable for what I would want if I'm Dana White, company owner, and he's Canadian. So now we're talking again the biases of what the company wants. And I think Mike Mallet is actually going to go out here and just starch Neil Magny. Um, I just think that's what the people want to see. And Mike could get caught, but Neil doesn't seem to have like the power to catch anyone these days. So I think Mike's just going to run at him, catch his chin, take him to the ground, do either ground and pound or find a submission. And I think that's pretty, you know, cut and dry type of fight. I really don't see Neil Magny having any chance of winning this fight. Like, I don't want to be rude, Neil, but yeah, I just don't see it. And based on how you handled your last fight, too, getting kind of caught up in some drama, I don't think Mike's going to bring that to you, but it showed, like, you got to be disciplined with your emotions there, too, buddy. So I'm not going to choose you, Neil. Mike Mallet is the pick. Going to the vacant title match for the women. It's going to be Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva. This fight, I really, don't care for to be a co-main event in a pay-per-view. I do not want to pay for that view at all. Like, I wish they could have found something else in that sense, but I mean, this is what they threw at us. So, Raquel Pennington, pretty older fighter, experienced, 35. So she's definitely, for the women's weight class, getting up there. Gonna have to start thinking about retirement. And then we got Mayra Bueno Silva, who's only 32, so has a little bit more gas in the tank to keep going. Like, both of them are, I'd say, are pretty evenly matched. Like, Mayra, being Brazilian, is going to be good at jiu-jitsu. Raquel likes to just keep shooting over and over to try to get it down to the ground and just be a controlling winner in that sense. But I see this as, like, Mayra having, like, being from Brazil. And, well, I'm blanking on who's the GOAT. Amanda Nunes, there we go. She just vacated the belt, right? And so I'm thinking they're going to want to send that back to Brazil so they can keep that audience for the women in that side of the world. And so I feel like they kind of gave Mayra this opportunity, even though neither one of these are truly deserving of it. I think they're wanting to put that belt back in Brazil so that audience can stay entertained. Because Raquel, like I said, I'm not trying to pay for Raquel's view, but I don't live in Brazil, and so I think they're trying to get the Brazilian audience to get Mayra the belt, so I would have to choose Mayra just based on that analytics of what I'm thinking there, because I don't know who wants to see Raquel Pennington as the as the champion. I really don't. Nothing, rude to you, Raquel. Great fighter for what you do, but if I'm just Dana White once again, like, I don't want Raquel to have the belt. Like, blunt business model here. So, yeah, I'm going to choose Mayra to win. I could care less if it's a submission or a decision. If I had to, choose gun to my head, I'm going to choose decision. I don't think anyone's going to be too deadly in this fight based on what I watched. So that would be the breakdown for that. And then finally, we make it to the last fight of the night, the headlining fight. We got Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. So this fight, I've been building my position on my fighter for a while now. I'll have like $150, $200 on him come that fight. And we'll start with Sean Strickland first. Sean Strickland is a very shelled fighter in the sense of he's going to have his hands up, high to his head, and he just spars. He boxes. He's hard to catch. Like, Alex Pereira caught him, and it was when he was on his back foot, I noticed. So he's backing away from his opponent, and Alex caught him, and his shell wasn't up because he was, moving backwards. So that part was kind of a interesting aspect to think about how this fight's going to go. He should be defensively sound, so if it can go later into the fight, I do give the edge to Sean Strickland. He's got great cardio. He spars every day apparently, and I think that will benefit him in the long run of this fight. But then we'll have Dricus du Plessis, who somehow beat Robert Whittaker. Still shocking to this day. I never thought Robert Whittaker would lose to anyone but Izzy, but that's life, right? And so I'm thinking about Dricus, that he can beat a guy as quality as what was the guy's name I just said? I'm blanking tonight, guys. Sorry, but as quality as him, I see Dricus starching Sean Strickland. I really do. I think he's gonna go in there, feel him out for a good 3 minutes, and then just do what Dricus does, which is empty the tank. Like, he's ready to just do it. So, and with all the like background drama, them getting in a fight at the stadium, them talking mad shit to one another, I think Dricus is gonna want to back it up. And then thinking about, UFC and what they want, there's going to be, or at least I heard a rumor that Izzy's going to be in the crowd. Israel Adesanya will be there in attendance. He got permission from New Zealand. I guess he got all of his paperwork taken care of so he could leave the country after his Dewey. Poor guy. Rip, Izzy, rip. But, yeah, so what I'm thinking the company wants in this scenario, they kind of have it good either way. Izzy can get a rematch with Sean if Sean somehow does win this. But Dricus was going to be the guy taking Sean's spot if he was not injured at that time. So either way, the UFC could care less, I think, who wins. But this is setting up for an Izzy fight. And I know Izzy was all in his feelings and all that and said he wasn't fighting until 2027, but I call bullshit. Like, this is a company, man. They're going to keep making you do what they want you to do. So, I'm going to give Dricus, though, the hand raise. And no! That's what I'm projecting for this fight, as I just think Dricus will knock out Sean Strickland. And with that in mind, if you're going to choose Dricus, choose him by knockout, because if it goes to decision, that would be crazy if Dricus lasts 25 minutes based on the output he does and the energy he expands. So the value is going to be on Dricus du Plessis as the final pick of the night. So thanks y'all for getting to this point. It's always fun doing this for myself. I enjoy this. So thanks for coming here. This is the A La Carte podcast. Once my buddy gets his computer back up, we are going to start the Parlay Kitchen. And yeah, so going off of that, the parlays that I had for this was Jasmine Jasdavicius, Jillian Robertson, and Charles Jourdain is the closest locks that I think you can get to in what the sport has to offer. And that's what the Parlay Kitchen will be about, and the long shot parlays that could change your life. It doesn't hit hardly ever, but still got to shoot for the moon, guys, so we can get there. But appreciate you for getting this far into the video. I'm Matthew, Mattman. Cheers, boys.